Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Darkstone Dossiers with your host, Anthony Darkstone.
Hello and greetings and a very, very good evening, good afternoon, and a good morning to you, depending on where you are on the planet. And we do have a lot of people from different countries all over the planet. And that includes many of our SAM, International Assembly members who are in various countries of the world. It's pretty easy to come and join them and me. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. So having welcomed you all in here, I also want to welcome, and I noticed very, very quickly, in fact, senior officers and past presidents of the SAM. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, as you probably gathered, it's a little bit difficult, to say the least, to get to Las Vegas. So my intention tonight is, or this afternoon, or this morning, is to bring a little bit of Las Vegas to you. And you know what? It's just going to be a little bit. Because if I brought you everything about this guest of mine, well, hey, you know what? We'd be here for a goodly while. All of it would be great, but we'd be here for a while. So I'm just going to try and focus on a few kind of main points. My guest tonight, I've known him for a little while, and I got to know him pretty good a couple of years ago when a particular gentleman invited me to come and do a gig in Las Vegas, and my guest was the MC, and we got to hang out and have some fun. About this point, I usually say a few words about my guest, a little bit of the background and who he or she is to magic. But you know what? My guest and I have a mutual friend. You may have heard of this gentleman, and we thought it might be a whole lot better if we let him do it. So here is our mutual friend introducing my guest.
Greetings, everyone. This is Jeff McBride from the Magic and Mystery School. I'm actually teaching class right now, but I wanted to say hello to everybody that's listening to this interview. And if you don't know about Tim Wise, he's known by everybody in Las Vegas. He's a massive contributor to the Las Vegas magic community. He's the host of the Las Vegas Wonderground and has been there since the very beginning. He's worked with some of the top names in magic, Siegfried and Roy. He's worked for David Copperfield. He's worked here at Mystery School. He's hosted his Hollywood Stars of Magic, which hosts the top names in the world of magic. He's an incredibly skilled performer, works at the Magic Castle, and if you don't know him, get to know him now. Have a great interview there, Tim and Anthony, and we'll see you online at the Magic and Mystery School. I'm Jeff McBride.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I told you he'd do a whole lot better job than me, and he's got a nicer looking hat than mine. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, virtually or otherwise, to bring in my wonderful guest, Tim Wise.
Thank you, Anthony. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see you, and what an honor to be here. Thank you. And that introduction from Jeff was, I was honored and humbled by that.
Well, we did pay him a lot of money.
Yeah.
No, but he's a busy man. And as he said, you know, he's got mystery school and teaching classes and doing all kinds of cool things. And we'll get to some of the cool things that, you know, he and you did together. I spoke to people earlier on about the SAM and indeed the International Assembly. If you've been following what's been happening, I'm delighted to tell you that our good friend Tim Wise fairly recently, in the last month or so, joined the SAM, and a number of wonderful notables like Sean Farquhar, Kevin James, etc. I can't possibly name everybody in the International Assembly, and we'll be talking about that in the chat later on. And Tim, I'm delighted to tell you, thanks to Mano Rodriguez, who really pulled some stops out here, has got a little something to share with us that arrived in the mail to him.
Yes, I did. Well, you know, I'm all about branding. I'm all about how you feel when you go to a show, see a show. So when I received my package from the SAM, you know, it's just like every other package when you open it up, and I got this package, and it was nice. I mean, you didn't want me to show the packaging, but I'll show you what came in it. First of all, I'm very honored to say that there it is right there, certificate of membership. And there I am, and it's sealed and it's embossed, and it made me feel good. That's, I guess, my point. I was talking to the guys earlier, pre-show, and that's great because I want to feel good when I open a package of a membership or an organization that I'm joining, and I felt good. And then here I am on the show, and I'm willing to say that if you're not a member, join, because you'll make you feel good. It really will. It's really good. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that certificate for us. For the more observant, eagle-eyed people, you would have noticed that where it says president, there's a signature. That signature is Dr. Joel Zaritsky, who is our most illustrious, which is how, for those of you not in the SAM, is how we address our president. The title is most illustrious. Usually I kind of introduce him at the beginning of a show, but I've deliberately avoided that because I'm going to bring him in a little bit later because he has some stories about Tim that he wants to share. So let's go to Tim and Jeff. As I mentioned, I knew Tim, I knew of his reputation, but we hung out when we were asked, when I was asked, rather, he's there all the time, when I was asked by Jeff to be part of the cast with some wonderful people that particular night. There was Samina, there was Mondre, and I can't remember everybody else. But I think we have a little picture up here, pre-show that Jeff and I took. And if you look on that side, it says there, Jeff McBride, Louis Fox, Anthony Darkstone, Jeffrey Tam, and down at the bottom, it says Brian Apollo, Tim Wise, and Ken Axel. Now, the reason I'm showing you that is it gives you a little feel of the ambience at the Wonderground. And it really is a cool place. When everything opens up again, you know what? Go there, buy a ticket, get in. It's only about $10 to get in. So that's great. Now, Tim, I want to cut to the one. Do we have a couple of other pictures of the Wonderground there? I think we may have one or two if we can bring them up. Oh, that's the after show party. Okay, bring it up. Bring it up. Yeah. Bring it up on a big screen. There it is. Well, Jeff, as you can see, is on my right-hand side. In the middle is the diamond of Sin City, Christian Doschel, is a very good friend of ours and my brother from a different mother. To his left is Randy Lynn, and between Randy Lynn and Mondre is myself. I believe we have John T. Sheets, Simon Marone. Tim, could you fill in some of the other faces if you can?
Simone, there's Elliot Hitchcock.
Right.
And then we have Kenna, we have Simone and Jordan Rooks. That's all. And it looks like the lady on the right next to Jeff, her name will come to me as soon as we go off the air.
Yeah, that usually happens. But anyway, we just wanted to show you those because it's the kind of fun we have after the show is over. I don't even know where we went. They just put me in a car and took me someplace, and it was a lot of fun. But anyway, I want to come back to talk a little bit about the Wonderground and your role in the Wonderground, Tim. You're not just the MC, so please share with us some of that history, how you got involved. And anything else you may want to talk about regarding the Wonderground.
Sure. Wonderground is the reason I'm in Las Vegas. And it's kind of an interesting story. Many years ago, a good friend of mine was producing a little documentary about the Abbott's Magic Get-Together. His name is A.J. Olson. And he did a 2 years documenting, and then he produced a documentary called Street of Cards. And I narrated part of it. I'm in a little bit of it, but it was about the Brotherhood of Magic. So a few years later, he was at a convention in Vegas because he lived in Vegas, and he pitched the documentary, and he was sitting at a bar, and the guy owned the software that allowed him to do broadcasting like we're doing now. And so when I was talking to this guy, he says, here, I've taken the software. Well, he took the software and created this internet website called Street of Cards, which is very similar to what we're doing now, interviews if it could go live. And he went to Darwin's Magic meeting. He pitched that. Then he took that show, his live broadcast, to the Wonderground at the Palace Station. And Jeff McBride's show was produced there 6 nights a week, called Magic at the Edge. And then twice a week, Jeff produced Wonderground Friday and Saturday night and created this whole Las Vegas vibe, really great scene for the people there. But my friend had a camera and went there too. And so back in Tennessee, I'm working for Dave Talent at Dollywood's Magic Shop back there at that point, helping him in his web stuff. I mean, not webcast, but web stuff. We were watching the Wonderground from Tennessee Friday and Saturday nights live, and Jeff McBride would come to the camera and, hey, we're having a great time. So Jeff, in around Halloween time, said we're going to have a contest, and we're going to do a best costume virtually. And I've been telling you 10 years ago, this was kind of a new thing. So they had a projector, broadcasting a chat room like this, like a Zoom room. So everybody's camera at home were on a big projector at the Wonderground. And Jeff picked my friend Rosie, her mask and her costume, and was going to award her this mask that he had used in a show as part of the reward for having the best costume. So we jetted out to Vegas. She gets the mask, and it's a really great time at Jeff McBride's house. And I saw the magic scene in Vegas, and man, I said, why am I living in Tennessee? Right? So, it's not that I didn't like Tennessee. It was beautiful, but why? I mean, look at this vibrancy. There's so much. Jeff brought so much vibrancy to my awareness. So when we were leaving and going back to Tennessee, we were driving back, and I said, Rosie, could you live in Las Vegas? And she goes, yeah. And I said, so could I. So when we went back, we just tried to this effort to try to get back to Vegas. And then about a year later, we get this opportunity to move in Needles, California, take care of a resort on the river as a job. It's like they needed managers. And it was through the magic scene that we got there. And then Jeff announced after a year off of Wonderground that he was doing it again at the Olive, which is what that picture was from that you just showed. And so Rosie and I,
that's off Strip, right, in Henderson.
That's off the Strip, about 4 miles off the Strip.
Yeah.
So, and that was the first time he had produced that show in about a year. So he closed the show at the Palace Station, so Wonderground closed. And I remember he was doing it 2 nights a week. And I'm telling you, I know Jeff very well. He's such a hard worker. He did 6 nights a week with his full evening show. And then 2 nights a week on top of that, he produced Wonderground. Now, when he brought it back to this little restaurant hookah lounge called the Olive Mediterranean Grill, right off the Strip. And he brought it back. It's a little very intimate space, holds about 200 people, right, at capacity. So it was very nice. And we started out, I mean, it was one stage. I have one of the original night that I went. So Rosie and I drove up from Needles to see the first Wonderground. Right, we get up there, and there is the Wonderground happening. And Jeff says, we want to stay with you down at your resort. We hear we have a place to stay. So he came down, and that weekend, my whole life changed. When Jeff came down to stay with us, he says, why are you living in Needles? I've got this mystery school. I want you to come up, and would you be my manager at Wonderground? And I said, sure. And so from that point, we've built it into this mythical thing that it's been something you've been a part of. And I can't tell you enough about the role I've taken. I mean, you have to take on roles, fill in the gaps, the curtains. I built the stage. I put the curtains in. We changed the way it looks over time. And that's how you refine it over time.
Right. Right.
I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, the Wonderground has been such a great thing. We've had so many people come across that stage. I've worked with, Gallagher, Amazing Jonathan, Xavier Mortimer's come in there, Siegfried's come in there, and so many things have come out of working with Jeff. Not only the Wonderground. I mean, the mystery school is where it all started for me, as far as the Las Vegas integration. Jeff said, come in. Started working at the Hilton with Steve Dacry, which we'll hopefully talk about, Steve.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I got to work with Steve Dacry at the Hilton, and that was my introduction to working in Vegas. I did Wonderground once a month And then I got a job working with Steve Dackery at opening for him at the Hilton.
You mentioned Xavier. He was, yeah, I think a couple of days before I went down to, I'm not going to mention where it is deliberately. And he was having his stuff built, and we just hung out and chatted. And then that night that Jeff had invited me to, as part of the cast, Xavier was on as well, and he rocked. And as you said, Tim, that's a kind of nice, intimate place. And the audience, believe it or not, is actually made up of performers, mostly magicians, supporting each other.
Luckily we have such a constituency in Vegas, right? There's a lot of magicians there, so it's a nice place. It's like a little mini magic convention once a month. That and it's by design. I mean, Jeff knew that twice a week was way too much. Once a month is plenty. Mm-hmm. And it allows us to build this psychological momentum that comes underneath anticipation. So when you're talking about the performer, oh, I'm going to do a show in a month, not next week. So I got a month. So there's anticipation. The audience knows it's only once a month, so they can't wait for the next one. And so, you know, when you do it that way, it's by design to create the anticipation. So then if you have a day off and you're in town, you, as an entertainer, more than likely you're going to show up at the Wonderground, you know, because it's something that you can, it's very social, but it's also good performers, you know.
Yeah, you get some top-notch people in there. You've mentioned already some names. I mean,
well, and first-timers too. First-timers in Vegas. I mean, we get the first-timers at first, so their break is at the Wonderground in a sense. Tommy 10 and Emily, first time played in Vegas, was on our stage, and they're at the, you know, and what did they do at, you know, on America's Got Talent? You know, it's just, you know,
exactly. Yeah, I've done a couple of I'm sorry, done a couple of gigs before, and I happened to be there for other reasons and whatever, and I was absolutely delighted. In fact, it was Samina, a good friend of ours and a good friend of Abby's, who had actually said to Jeff, you know, Anthony's coming to town. He went, hey, we'll get in touch, got to bring him on. So they juggled some stuff around, and I'm grateful to him that he put me in the cast.
Well, one of the things about Wonderground too, it's very organic. Mm. And when I say organic is because as a stage manager, I mean, I took on whatever role, and I mean, we have some, it's not done by myself, it's not done by Jeff, it's a team, you know, so, and, you know, I've filled in when Jeff's out of town, I take over, and, you know, but it's everybody has many roles. But when I first started, stage manager, so you got people who are, and everybody's different, and everybody has their approach as a performer different. Some people are confident, some people are nervous. You know, some people don't have their introduction cards or don't even understand what an introduction card is. I mean, you know, and but how we're very flexible that way. Oh, you're not going to make it. We get a phone call. We shuffle things. And you know, Jeff is a prepared performer, and it's taught us all, you know, to have something in your pocket ready to go in case something goes wrong. You know,
absolutely. I think if there's anything we're going to take away from Jeff is that he's often spoken about this on his lectures and other things. Is a little glasses case, not quite like this, but in there as a complete act. And I've done much the same thing. I got 2 45-minute acts that if, you know, you're on and off a plane and something goes wrong, you still have to
pack small, play big. I mean, he's the master at that. He has a full 2-hour show in a 50-pound suitcase and a rolling bag, you know, 2 hours.
You talked about, you know, filling in and doing a lot of things at the Wonderground, but I want to focus on a very important task that a lot of people, in fact, just assume is very easy, and it's not. It really isn't. And that is, in your sartorial elegance, you're there as the MC, and you really are sartorial and elegant. You give the place some class. Not that it doesn't have any, but I think, you know, most people.
Well, it's a hookah lounge. Once a month we have to transform a hookah lounge into a performance space, and I look good in a tux, I guess, and so I felt that that's the way it needed to be presented. I had such fun when I came to Vegas. I got to be a maitre d', and so I actually greeted people every day, you know, and it's understanding that everybody's an individual sitting in the audience.
And
It's a group.
this is what I wanted to compliment you on and explain to folks. In fact, being an MC is not just coming up and say, ladies and gentlemen, here's John Smith. Because I noticed with you, you went there, you spoke to everybody who was performing, and it doesn't matter who they were, you know, knowns or unknowns. You chatted with them. Some of them kind of went, okay, here's my cue cards, here's my music, here's everything. Others, as you said, you know, it just happens that way. But you took the time and trouble, and you were prepared. So I think really when we open up the chat and talk to Tim later, that's something you may want to ask Tim about.
Yeah, ask me anything about it. I mean, really, it's refinement. You know, when you do it, it's fun when you can just do it on autopilot sometimes. You know, you're going to run into a hiccup or something's going to happen. But overall, we've pulled off over. Actually, we did the count, and I'm not boasting because Jeff toured a lot, but I did a lot more. I did a few more than Jeff as far as the total, but it was like, it just runs because we've got a good team. I mean, I kind of, if everybody knows what they're doing, then that's what we try to make sure. And then we cross train people so that, oh, I can't run spot tonight, so I'm going to run curtain. And, you know, these are the things that we can fill in. And once the machine's working, I mean, any professional knows that once the thing's working, now it's refinement. Now it's refinement. Let's tighten it up. You know, if we did this, it'll be better. And so, you know, that's how 10 years of Wonderground, we certainly refined it. And we could still, I mean, there's still more we want to do.
I want to move now because I know you played a major role in, actually, we do have a picture of something that Jeff talked about earlier on the show where you're with Gary Darwin, Lance Burton, and oh, there it is. Yeah, if we can pull that up. I mean, there's quite a lot of names in there. There's Lupe, Dear Norm, respect to his memory. There's Mondre, Mac King, Joan Decor, Lance, Gary, of course, sitting in there. Fill in the other names if you
Alexandria,
would.
Fielding West, and Gary. Yeah, this was to honor Norm, and Lance put this together for Norm. Do you like magic? Las Vegas was the place and is now, but it was, you know, prior to the pandemic, of course. It was just so, I thought when I first went to Las Vegas, when I first ever went to Las Vegas, I heard about Gary Darwin's magic meeting. So, and I'm a nut for magic, right? So when I got to Darwin's, it just happened to be a night when it was a Wednesday night that Darwin's was popping. And I went,
yeah,
this is Las Vegas.
back in the day at Boomers, the back room.
It was at Boomers. And my eyes were as big as pizza pans. So, because I flew into Vegas just for a couple of days and I had to go back to Detroit or wherever I was going. And I was like, this happens every week, you know? And, and then, every time I'd go back, I'd always work it around Darwin's meeting. I would always go. Sometimes it was a dud and there's 3 people in Darwin. And, but see, you know, you get to know your elders. That's what I do. And so I spent a lot of time with Gary Darwin, and Gary Darwin was very good at meeting someone new, greeting them with kindness, and then saying, show me your best blank. Show me your best silk trick. Show me your best this. And Gary would he doesn't, because Gary had an audience, but he would take the time to take the time with someone new to learn. And Gary learned so much. Gary was just like a storehouse of knowledge, and it was an honor to share a lot of time with him in Las Vegas. But he was the reason why I really wanted to move to Las Vegas, is around his thing. So when you saw all those people, that was a Gary Darwin meeting that was and on a Wednesday night, and it was an honoring of Norm. But that's the kind of people that show up to these meetings. And so then you go, wow, I'm really with the stars of magic. And you can learn so much from people who are refined. When we get back to refinements, Fielding West, refined, Lance Burton, refined. You hang around Norm Nielsen, Lupe, all of Mac King, everything's refined.
I recall with fondness, and I'm not saying this to brag, well, maybe I am a little bit, because when I was invited, it's a long story, but anyway, I got there and I was invited to lecture actually at Boomers for the Phantasma Ring or whatever it's called. Oh, it's run by Roger Dreyer in New York. Well, anyway, it's an IBM ring. They don't have an SAM ring there, but assembly, but that is currently being taken care of. I understand it by Christy Taguchi. She's trying to do something to get an SAM assembly going there, and why not? I'd forgotten about this. Gary came up, greeted me, and spoke to me like I was some kind of, superstar. And I'm like, what is Gary Doran, This is Gary. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is not me. I just want to honor his memory by telling this. He then, would you believe, pulled out a copy of MUM, which if you don't know what it is, it's the monthly magazine of the Society of American Magicians, where yours truly was on the cover. And this is, some years ago. Somehow he had managed to get hold of it. And he said, would you sign this for me? And I thought I was being set up for some kind of super gag, which is fine. I love mischief. But the man was absolutely genuine. He really wanted me to sign that cover. And ever since then, I was like in not just awe. I really loved him like a favorite uncle, as everybody else did, as you've just said. And I'm telling that story, not because it's about me. Really, it is.
Well, that was the first time you met him, right?
That was the first time I met him.
Right.
Yeah.
So he had forethought.
Yes.
And when you have forethought, that shows that he had thought about, you. So when you said he had a copy, he probably had 9 copies of that.
Possibly,
I mean, if you got to know Gary, Gary was a collector, amazing collector. His house was his museum, and he slept on the couch. He was like that into magic.
Yeah, so. I've heard stories of stuff in his home. Yeah, and the shall we say, efforts that Lance Burton had to go through to clear some of that.
Sure, but here's the brotherhood again.
Yeah,
Lance Burton stepped up for Gary, and that's what we got to do. I mean, that's what we do as the brothers. It's really great.
Yeah, it is a brotherhood. I want to take you a little bit now, Tim, to I've never been to the mystery school. I mean, Jeff and Abby have invited me to their home and et cetera as a guest with my brother from a different mother, Christian, whom you know, Christian Dossiers,
sure.
Christian Diamond. And, he showed me around the stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I want to do, in fact, is to get your take on, is this about Jeff? No, it's not about Jeff. It's about, as you said, Tim, it's about magic. And you played a very pivotal role. I mean, I've never attended the mystery school. I just haven't. But you played a pivotal role, along with blessings to his memory, dear Eugene, in the mystery school. Share, I mean, obviously you can talk about it for forever, but share a little bit about that.
That's how, okay, so sure. The mystery school for me is people can open vistas for you, and that's what's happened for me. Jeff McBride has opened vistas. The mystery school, the integration with Las Vegas is open vistas, but I had to climb. So the mystery school was my entrance into Las Vegas. I went to the first Wonderground. I was living in Needles. Jeff came down and visited with me for a few days, stayed as for a vacation, him and Abby. That's where I got to know him. He invited me to be in the mystery school. I got a week program. I need a new stage manager. And why are you living in Needles? I mean, those were the thing comes out of that. And also, I was talking to Jeff about this last night, actually, that he was doing Zoom teaching back then on Skype. I think he was using back then.
Yep, he was. And
said that he wanted to be doing this a lot more. So it's kind of his forecasting that he didn't even remember but when you forecast things, actually they can happen. So I getting on track, keep me on track here because there's so much to talk about. But
I know.
So he invites me to mystery school for a week. I go to mystery school for a week. Larry Haas, Dr. Haas, all the cast of and I was welcomed like family. Yeah. And I was integrated because most of those people at the school had to go home after that week, but I lived there. And so I was able to stay. And then I moved to Las Vegas from Needles, left Needles, moved to Las Vegas, started working at the Hilton. And then Jeff, we can talk about the character that I have now.
Yeah,
That
we're coming to that.
Yeah, because that's how it all happened. So when I got into the mystery school, it's like a magic convention every day. Now, I don't know how if you've never been to a magic convention, when you do attend, you will feel something there. If you love magic, you will feel it. Now, I quit high school and joined a magic show when I was 16. My mother let me quit high school and join a magic show, Dennis Loomis's Magic Base, for a year, and I was gone for a year. I love magic so much. So if you can like go to a magic convention, that's how you make you feel. You just can't even get enough of it, you know. And even at the convention's over and people are still hanging out talking to magic till 5, 6 in the morning. So that's exactly how Mystery School made me feel in coming to Las Vegas.
Of course,
so,
there's a lot of folks who've been through, I put that in inverted commas, through Mystery School, and can't possibly name them all, have gone on to bigger and better things. One of them being Matt Franco, at one stage, who won America's Got Talent, and I believe his picture is alongside David Copperfield, Max Maven, and Mac King. If you go to magicsam.com, it's at the top. Now, I'm bringing you back to Mystery School for a reason. There was a particular gentleman that you and I know who actually attended that. And when I told him that you were going to guest on the show, kind of went, "Oh, wow, really?" And he, was telling me, wonderful things about you. And he's here. He's always here on the Darkstone Dossiers. He even signed your SAM membership certificate. That is most illustrious. I usually introduce him at the beginning of the show. And this is why I left it till now. Because for those of you who don't know him, most illustrious president of the SAM, I think would like to say a few words about Mystery School. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joel Zuritsky.
Thanks, Anthony. Well, I've been going to Mystery School just about every single year. I go every year to the Magic in Medicine seminar, which a bunch of medical professionals get together and spend an extended weekend learning magic. And many, many moons ago, Tim was there. And, Tim was talking before about how you feel good about receiving something, of getting something, whether it be in the mail or just as a gift. He spent an entire afternoon with medical professionals. So he had a lot of patience and a lot of passion teaching all the stuff from this book, Gift Magic, of how to give that feeling to other people. So kudos to you, Tim, because I still remember that afternoon, of all your teachings, and you're a great instructor, a great.
Oh, well, thanks, pal. It's easy when it's true. As a performer, if you can get to the truth, it's easy. Right, so the truth in the gem, like
right.
the genie, I'm getting a little like teared up here a little bit, only because I'm passionate about it. If you can get there, then people just everybody can put their arms down. Because a lot of people are like this. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Impress me, blah, blah, blah. But if you can get everybody to relax, it's just an entirely different feel. So when we were doing the gift magic thing, I was doing this character, which we haven't introduced yet, but I want to get there.
We're coming to it.
Yeah, because, that's because I want to talk about that character, because everything came from that character. A lot came from that character. Okay. And getting to Joel's point about that class, it was only after the experience of using that character, doing what I did, that I could bring that to you, Joel, in the class. So there's to know that, and there was a refinement that had to happen with that too. What you saw in the instruction wasn't the first time I'd ever done it. I actually done it hundreds and hundreds of times for the public to get it to that.
Well, you're a very giving person, and you said something very remarkable, which you and I have talked about before. Probably the truest thing on the planet. Now, this may sound like a dichotomy because we deceive people for money. Yes, it's a dichotomy. However, without sounding overtly erudite, probably the most truthful thing anybody can do is magic. because you discover truths about yourself, about the universe, about other people, and you discover this truth of the true magic of actually giving and sharing.
Well, yes. And, you know, the Magic and Medicine Conference, you know, here I am as a performer, not a doctor, in a conference that I was invited to be with because I was working at the school, but I also had some input to a medicine conference, something out of my academic knowledge, but not necessarily my psychological or experience knowledge. I mean, so there's different. And I was able to contribute. And there's a big, powerful element of the power of the archetype, as well as just doing a trick. You know, the power behind. If for instance, my character giving you a gift is different than if I give it to you behind the counter at a restaurant, or across at a 7-Eleven. But it's still an experience. It's just different. You know, if I was in a white coat and I did this for you, how would it make you feel? And so there's a real powerful part about the arc. I mean, we talk about this at Mystery School as you know, and then in that Magic and Medicine, we were talking about archetypes and the power of the archetype. And the Doctor is a very, very powerful archetype in the world. It's very powerful. And before that, it was shaman and medicine men. So there's a lineage over a long period of time that we've acknowledged that archetype.
Absolutely. And I think you epitomized that with the character that we're about to put up on the screen. Now, I know we had you know, lots of stories about Magic Castle where you played with this character, and I believe this photograph was taken at the Magic Castle, and Jeff had a big hand in this character. So I'm just going to let you tell the wonderful story behind this, Tim.
Yeah, how much fun. And this is a story it's a true story. I love all truth. You know, truth is good. So I'm first guy at, you know, I'm working with Jeff, and I'm working at the school. And this is at this photo here was just about 2 years ago at the Magic Castle. I did the afternoon brunch shows for the kids. Jack Goldfinger loves the genie, and the genie loves the Magic Castle. So he has been there. He goes there a couple times. When we were working, we would go a couple times a year. The genie and I would go and work the Magic Castle for the kids. And I'd also work the bar at night, but the genie was the highlight. So getting back to how the genie came about, I'm in Vegas. I don't know a lot of people. I'm spending a lot of time with Jeff at the Mystery School, and we're working in the garage one day. And he brings up a show that I had booked, and it was that night. And he goes, "Hey, you got a show tonight?" And I said, yes. Now, the preface to this is that at the Wonderground, we have done about, 4 or 5 Wondergrounds. And one of the girls at the Wonderground says, "I have a show coming up. It's called The Bad Fairy Ball, and I need a host. Would you host the show?" And I went, "Sure, why not, Suzanne? I'll do anything for you." So a couple months later, "You're still going to do the show, right?" "Yeah." "Well, it's at the it's an adult fairy ball." And I went, "Okay." So then I'm at Jeff's house the day of the show, and Jeff goes to me, "Tim, you're doing that show for Suzanne tonight?" And I said, "Yes." And we're just moving in the garage and stuff. And he goes, "So what are you going to wear?" And I went, "Well, my suit. I mean, because I don't have a lot of costumes. I just moved to town, blah, blah, blah. I don't have anything to wear." So he goes, "Okay." And so about an hour goes by. This is the greatest part about Jeff McBride, is that he thinks an hour goes by. And then he comes up to me and he hands me $50. He says, "Would you do me a favor?" And I said, "What?" He says, "Could you run down to the dry cleaner and pick up something for me?" And I went, "Sure." So I grabbed the $50. I drove down to the dry cleaner. I go, "I hear from Mr. McBride's dry cleaning." Lady brings a turban and a robe back, and I grab it. And I'm dumb as a rock, honestly. I'm gullible, whatever. I just brought it back to him, and I go, "Here's your costume." And he goes, "Put it on." And I went, "What?" He goes, "Put it on." And then he went over to this costume trunk. He had some baggy pants and an organ grinder shirt. And so I'm in the garage, and I'm trying to get this costume on, and I got the helmet, the helmet, it's the turban. And he only had a mirror on the wall in the garage. It's a little makeup mirror about this big. That's it. And so I'm way back trying to get the whole scope in the mirror to see how I look. And Jeff's head comes over my shoulder and he goes, "You can't wear a suit. This is what you wear to a fairy ball." And so I then, what am I going to do with this costume? I'm the genie. People are going to want to, instantly I had to get into character, right? I'm not going to go to a fairy ball and I'm emceeing. And so, I'm changing my voice. I'm trying to fall into this character of the genie in a day, because we had the show tonight. And I said, what do I give away? Some scrolls with good wisdom on it, and then Jeff said, we'll do the wish bubbles, right? Which is Abby's little thing with you blow bubbles and then you produce a gem or crystal and then from the bubble. And so I did that. And George Parker's version of that with where I would gift from the Gift Magic book, where I give gems in a different method. So I did both of those that night, and it was a hit. And plus I emceed and ate fire and all that I normally do, but it was a hit. The show was the genie was a hit. So Jeff comes up, he went to the show. Jeff came to the show that night, I was honored, right? And then he goes, "You should take that character out on the street, on Fremont Street." And so I did. The next night I went to Fremont Street with the character. And back then there was no restrictions in Las Vegas to work Fremont Street. Anywhere I could walk, I could go. And so I walked up and down the street in the hottest nights, 120 degrees. I remember one night on Binions, it was 118 degrees at midnight. And I'm out there. Wow. I'm working in this big, heavy costume. Now, that costume in the photograph there is Genie 2.0. The original costume Jeff loaned me was from Caesar's Magical Empire as one of the characters that was used. And that's actually a 2.0 photo too. That costume there was made by the manager, one of the managers at the Magic Castle. Her name was Pat Payne. And Pat is a seamstress, and one weekend I was working the genie in the old costume. The old costume had seen thousands of performances at Caesars. And then you'll have to probably go to another, I don't think you have a photo of the old costume, but it's very similar to this. But what's best about it, though, is that I wore it for thousands of performances on the street and then at the castle. So then I said, I got to get this thing replaced, and asked Pat Payne at the Magic Castle one day. I said, so do you take commissions? And she says, well, sometimes. And I said, well, here's $100. I need a costume. And it took a couple of years to make that costume. But that costume has a lot of love in it, and it's built for me. But the costume has taken me many places. The first place was not only the street, because the street was kind of a place to work it out, work the gem gifting thing out, because I would gift people. I would do a little magic. People always wanted a photo with the genie. So I'm out on the street. Hey, can we have your photo, Mr. Magic or Mr. Genie? Yes, of course. And I was, of course it is. It's good luck to have your photo with the genie. Come over here, And we were all standing there and the lights and stuff. And the gem thing would come after. I would do a little magic, get a photo, get a group, and it wasn't broadcasting, it was narrow casting, as Jeff would cost. I'd had 8 to 10 people. Tips were usually better, when you have a small group, because people are compelled to hand you a $5, another guy hands you a $5, and all of a sudden you did 20, $30 in a couple minutes or whatever. So, and that's the fun part about street performing. You can work it out. If you're out there all afternoon, whatever you started being at the beginning, being a novice, you're by the end of the day, you've got something, especially if you keep working it. So that's always my encouragement, is to always just keep working,
on that. We have a number of people here who actually know Fremont Street, who've actually visited it, but we also have a number of people who don't know what Fremont Street is. All I can say is, at this moment, go and Google it. It won't do it justice.
It's a promenade, a covered promenade. It's 4 blocks long in downtown Las Vegas. Yeah. And you feel like you're encapsulated in this incredible, vibrant energy. And at night, they light up the dome and then they broadcast, but the dynamic of the energy. So that's where the genie would do his work.
Because people fit in. Yeah.
Well, they believed I was a genie. People would come up and they go, Mr. Genie, I got a wish. And blah, blah, blah. There was suspension of disbelief. I mean, they're already in a crazy place underneath a dome, lots of lights, maybe a few cocktails or whatever they're into, and then they come up and they find a genie. Well, of course, I'm going to get the questions or make my wish and so on. But it's really great because people release when they're in that environment, they relax. They're totally
I think
uninhibited.
we have to say, when you spoke about dome, the entire ceiling that's 4 blocks long is a video wall. That's the only way I can describe it. It's ginormous.
Yeah, and it's one long screen.
There's one
It's
long
not
screen,
like
4 blocks
individual.
long. 4
Yeah,
blocks long. Yeah.
there it is. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, there you
it
go.
is. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I mean, that's just the kind of partial view that.
Yeah, so like if you look down underneath on that photo down there, you can see the ground way down below because this is taken up high. And that is just walled shoulder to shoulder people when once an hour, right on the hour, all the lights go out on the street and the dome lights up. And and it's 4 blocks long, 4 city blocks long. That is one long movie screen. And it's so like if something starts at one end, it goes all the way across to the other. So it's pretty neat technology, but it's old technology because it's been there since I believe the 90s. But it's very, very fun. And the dynamic of downtown is a different dynamic than the Strip. The Strip is open and you've got to travel in your car from one property to the other or be physically fit to walk long distances on the Strip. But the Fremont Street experience, and that's what they call it, is encapsulated. So you have an experience when you go down there, you park once and you can go everywhere and have a really, good time. It's not very expensive. It's less expensive than the Strip.
Oh, there's a lot of shows there that are free, magic and otherwise.
Yes. Well, street performing has evolved. They've had to, the laws have changed. And so you have stages that the Fremont Street presents shows and magic shows and other music, mostly music for the general public. And they'll have multiple stages, but they have had magic shows there, of course. Hans Klock has done some things there. Chris Angel has done some stuff on the street there in the past. It's not like magic doesn't happen there, but it's very vibrant, and that's where I got my chops. And Will Bradshaw, many guys. Sean from why can't I remember his last name? But many people have gotten their chops on Fremont Street. It's a great place to go. Then the genie got to work with Siegfried and Roy, and that was when things started to change for the genie. Paul Stone, many people know, calls me one day and says, I'm going to be doing some magic at Sunrise Hospital with Siegfried and Roy, Tim, and would you like to join me? And I went, yeah, I would. That would be an honor. And so this was 2 days prior to Christmas Eve, and he wanted to go. They were going Christmas Eve. And so I was excited about it. And Paul said, if you know anybody else, and I really didn't know anybody at the time in town that I could recommend. And so the day of Christmas Eve, I wake up and I said, these kids that we're going to see at the hospital are not going to know who Siegfried and Roy are. Even though they're celebrities, they had been off the stage at that point about 9 years. Mm-hmm. And I realized that they're not going to know who Siegfried and Roy are, even though we're going in to do some nice things. The kids aren't really going to know. And then, and they're not going to know me in a suit. So I called Paul Stone and I said, hey, Paul, would it be okay if I brought the genie? And he goes, I don't know. I'll have to talk to Lynette. So he calls Lynette, and Lynette says, as long as I don't scare the children. So, and I didn't know what we were doing at the hospital. We were just going to the hospital. So I arrived with the costume. We get up, and I didn't know if we were doing a show for every kid or if we were going room to room. We didn't really know. So when I get there, I got the genie costume. Siegfried comes in and just gives me the once-over, and looks at me. And Roy wasn't there yet, but we started out. And I went to the first room, and I went in with them, all 3 of us together. Well, it was too much of a distraction. Siegfried went in with coloring books and so on, and then Roy came in his wheelchair with a tiger, a stuffed tiger for the child, mm-hmm. and it ended up that I would do the gem trick for the kids. But at the end, Siegfried would go in first, Roy would come in behind, and then Siegfried would go. And now we have the magic genie. And then I would come in, ha hello, young man, young girl. These kids are, there's a photo. I don't know there's a photo of me bedside with a small child with his hands like this, catching a gem, with my hands open like this, with Roy in the background and watching on. Very compelling photograph for me. I mean, when I saw that, I remember when Blackstone used to work the hospitals, and back then they could have bunny rabbits and things, but the idea of that and the magic that brought. And so what an honor to work with Siegfried and Roy in that capacity, doing charity work essentially. And then they brought me back again the following year for the Boys and Girls Club. And then the Magic Castle needed a bar magician, and they wanted a kid. And Jeff says, well, we want to put you in on the kids shows for the mystery school week. And then I worked the castle, and then Jack says, well, you're going to be back as the genie. This is great. And so the genie started out as just go to the dry cleaner and pick up the costume.
Well,
right. You got here 10 years later, he's got a life of his own. I just invested almost $3,000 in a new costume, but what a great ride the genie has had. And I get to be in that person in the character.
That character. You mentioned Jack Goldfinger. Most people would have heard of Goldfinger and Dove, but this was in the capacity where he was booking acts for the castle, because you've had different people like Max Maven, etc., booking acts, and that was when Jack.
Over the years, yes.
Yeah. As far as I know, he's still in charge of that. It may have changed. I don't know. However, a great place, by the way. If you've never been to the castle, go. It's that simple. If you're not a member, find somebody who is, and they will take you. Having said that, I want to take you now to. You mentioned Siegfried and Roy. You've mentioned many wonderful names, and we've showed pictures of you with Norm Gary, etc. I mean, you spent a time with David Copperfield, with Steve Dacre, which I want to talk about in a little bit, a very, very dear friend of mine, of ours. And I know you're doing a lot of work in regard to his legacy. But I want to kind of like jump a little bit. As you said in the beginning, there's so much with Tim.
Yeah.
Where do you go? I got to keep this guy tight,
Well, I'm verbose, and so I hope your editors.
No. We're not going to edit any of this out, man. This is cool. This is history. By the way, when he's talking about editor, we do film this and then goes to Vegas, not that far away from where Tim is sitting right now, to a very good buddy of ours who does all the necessary work, and then we have a showcase in which it stays. That's it. So if you want to relive the memory, go watch it. If you want to share it with your friends, we'll give you the link. Anyway, I want to come all these great names, and it would be remiss if I didn't mention two, and we do have a picture of you with Hollywood stars of magic, with two, what I would call living legends. One, not living legends. One has passed, and the other one, as far as I'm concerned, is a legend. Enjoyed spending time sitting in his apartment in Vegas, sharing all kinds of wonderful stuff with him. And I just love this guy to bits. Obviously, everybody recognizes, I would hope, the late Mr. Thompson. Standing next to him, and I prefer to call him as such, John A. Thompson's son of the mantle to him. And this is the gentleman I was talking about that I spent a lot of time with, and that's Paul Vigil. Now, I believe I've been told Paul Vigil is in the room. Can we spot Paul and just say a quick hello to him? Is Paul around someplace?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're
Hey,
there.
Paul.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? Good to see you, man. How you doing?
Great. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, I miss you, buddy. Yeah, how's your cat doing?
Pretty good, actually. I'm in Utah right now with my parents, and
Okay.
Picking them up one more time. They're
Yeah,
taking care of him right now.
I was just saying, I don't recognize any of that. The background doesn't look like your apartment at all. Yeah, we've spent a lot of fun times here. Thanks for coming in here, Paul. I appreciate you joining us. I really, really do. Thank you for doing that, not just for me, but obviously also for Tim. And thank you. I have to acknowledge Paul, who is just one of the greatest.
Well, let me jump in about Mr.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do that.
Yeah. Well, where do you start except to say that, when we're kindred spirits, and so that's where it starts. And then honesty and integrity is also where it is. So that's kind of where our relationship started, right? It was very good that way. Years ago, when we met at Darwin's one night, and I got to know Johnny and Paul over the 10 years or so that I was in Las Vegas. And getting to that photograph that was up there, that started a ball rolling, which was pretty amazing. I had this vision of doing a brand that I had started called Hollywood Stars of Magic. I did originally started the brand with Suzapon, who worked with Brian Gillis up in Hermosa Beach. And we did a run at a theater, and it was just once a month for 12 months. And we did that show. And then I put it on hiatus, moved to Vegas, and I was in Vegas, but I said I wanted to do a close-up show. And I said, well, maybe I can take Hollywood Stars of Magic, find a little theater and do close-up, because really properly close-up it wasn't being done as a honoring close-up. So I took the brand Hollywood Stars of Magic and called it Up Close. So the moniker on it was Hollywood Stars of Magic Up Close, because I had the stage version, and so we had this Up Close version. And so it was just before Christmas. Doc Eason is the one who inspired me to get off my butt and try to do this. In the sense that he didn't tell me you should do it, but when I talked to him, I got inspired, I should say. And so I called Paul and I said, would you be interested in doing this show that I haven't started yet? And he says, I'm all in, but I'm busy through the holidays, so let's do it after the first of the year. So we reconnected, and he said yes. Well, he said yes prior to the first of the year. And so we went to Darwin's. It was they were honoring Gary. It was 26th of December, and we went in, and Gary Darwin was at the meeting, and Johnny was there, and Paul was there, and Fielding was there, and it was really a nice evening of magic at Tommy Rocker's. But I went up to Tommy to Johnny, and I said, Paul's doing my show. I would love if you would do it. He was like, sure, pal. It was just like it just rolled right out of his mouth. And I went, it couldn't have been easier. So then I said, well, Paul's doing the 19th. Could you want to do the following week, the 26th? And he says, sure. And it was done. It was done that night at Darwin's. So then it went from my little show, Hollywood Stars of Magic concept, to having the best names in magic, I should say, working my first two shows. And from there, and I have to say that sadly, it was Johnny's last performance, public performance. It was his first close-up performance in Vegas in 15 years. And it was, there's a lot. Paul was booked in my room the day he passed. And so we had to go through that a couple weeks after that, that the show must go on. But Johnny, my virtual theater now is Johnny Thompson Studios for Hollywood Stars of Magic. Yeah. It was an honor to have him. Paul and Johnny paved the way to get the Grand Prix FISM winner, Johnny Ace Palmer, to produce the show. Banachek's done the show. Paul Draper, Greg Gleason. Nice because it's once a week. It wasn't a big commitment for the performers, and everybody delivered on, and I delivered on a promise. I took a tiny theater that was a dump, and I don't mean to say that in the Las Vegas terms, but I wanted the close-up experience to be just like when I opened up the mail earlier or whatever. Yeah. I want, or how I feel, or when you came to Wonderground, I'm in a suit. So I'm going to meet you where I want to meet you. And so I put my own carpet down in this theater every Saturday. I'd get there early, we'd put carpet down, our carpet, white. I put up curtains all around the room that already had curtains. I put my own curtains, brought in my own table, and we did that every week, up and down, rolled up the carpet, stuck it in the corner to produce the experience of Hollywood Stars of Magic, so that when you came into the room, you felt like you were somewhere. And Paul Vigil was awesome. I mean, Paul probably did. How many shows did you do with us, pal? I mean, I'm trying to get to the juice of what Hollywood Stars of Magic, but it wouldn't have happened really if it wasn't for you.
Maybe a dozen.
Yeah, and over the time, Paul was our regular, and if you've never seen Paul work, you need to find him.
You haven't seen magic,
right? Because
you
I mean,
have
that's
not
what
seen magic.
and that's what Paul and I have been friends, and so I knew that he was an ace in the sense that he had his own show at the Mirage, at the King Ink, and that's where he really worked out your stuff, right, Paul? I mean that was like, I concede to you because
battleground.
yeah, I want to concede to you in the sense that we talk about refinement. So go, if you want to say a few words just because you're here, and that's what kind of the subject is that when you're doing a show that many times, you really get it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things to get good, you have to have somewhere to be bad, of course, and so not that I wanted to go there and be bad or anything, but it was a place that allowed me to make mistakes and to grow and to learn over almost 5 years. And yeah, what you did with Hollywood Stars of Magic, we had a really great time with it. And Johnny had a great time with it. There was a lot of great acts you had come through there. I wish something like that was still going, of course.
Well, I saw that Losander is actually trying to do something out of his theater in a very limited capacity. And I think in our culture right now, if small groups can probably pull off a close-up show, of course, you're not going to, if you're doing it for the money, it's going to be difficult because unless you get a decent ticket price. But yeah, I wish that we could continue because I'm ready to keep going.
We'll talk about that in a minute with the virtual theaters, etc. But there's something I'm going to say here, which is going to kind of embarrass Paul a little bit. But it needs saying because we have different levels of magicians watching us right now, pros and, shall we say, I don't like this word, semi-pros or part-time pros or whatever. You mentioned it, Tim, and I'm glad you did. And this is what I call class. Doesn't matter what's happening. The day that Mr. Thompson passed, that was the day Paul's gig. And I'm not going to go into it, but let's just say Paul and Johnny were close, very close, like father and son. Would that be an accurate description, Paul? Yeah, he's nodding. Okay. And he went and, let's give credit because I don't know who's going to be watching this in 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. I may be gone. Some of us may be gone. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is I want to make that here's a class guy. His father in magic passes, but he still comes over.
Yeah, and I got the call that Johnny had passed when I was on my way to the gig, and I had 2 gigs to do that day.
Yeah.
And it was maybe 45 minutes before the show was going to start. And, there's a lot of times in my show where I talk about John and who he is and his influence on me and some of the things that he taught. And all I could think of the whole time was don't choke up, don't choke up. But I also knew how disappointed John would be if I didn't go and do those gigs because he would have just said, there's nothing that you could do for me. We'll see each other down the road.
Yeah, I was backstage with Paul and, it was an honor to do the shows.
Yeah.
One thing I have to say too about those being John's last shows that he did there with you, Tim, and I'm glad Tim's got a record of the show too, is Tim did 2 shows. And the first show, again, he said that John hadn't done a show in 15 years in a close-up show like that in Vegas, although, we always jammed and stuff together, and so it wasn't that his first show was bad. It was just that when he ended, he was like, oh, I forgot that line. And, and then when he came out and did that second show, really is, I hope that more people can watch that show someday because honestly, it was, his last performance, he really did hit it out of the park. He really, truly did in every way, shape, and form.
I have to agree. Backstage he was he forgot the line or whatever, and that's
it wasn't like he messed up or anything, but like he did the cuts and balls, and he ended up forgetting to do some of the voiceovers that he does. He was like, oh, I forgot Krieger's voice, right?
But the second show, Paul, and so what was really great after the show, so we had a very successful 2 shows with Johnny, and honestly, he gave it his all. He gave it his all. He showed up 100%. he understood. I mean, we're backstage, and the theater backstage was, I made the theater. So, we went to dinner at Peppermill. I think Tony Hassini was there, and Terry and Paul, and I thanked Johnny, first of all, 100%. I said, I got to thank you, because by you saying yes, other people are going to say yes to this show because you've said yes. And he says, anything for you, pal. And then I said, is there anything I should change? And he says, don't change a thing. And
it's hard to imagine how many shows he did. One night I was with Johnny and Lance Burton, and it was just after Lance had stopped. And so he had done, 15 years of shows, though, by the time he stopped there. And I said, how many shows do you think you've done in your life? And he was adding it up in his mind, and he was like, oh, and I don't remember what his answer was. Then John was like, he's like, let me tell you how many shows I did. He used to do 15 shows a day when he was coming up, through after the vaudeville falling apart, and his sideshow gigs and this and that. And
so basically, another thing I got to say to John about Johnny Thompson, and that's how he paid it forward up to the last second. He always said yes. That's why you might have that same feeling, Anthony, if I'm the host of the Wonderground, is that I'm going to take the time to say yes, to talk.
Absolutely. I can verify that personally. I mean, we talked about it earlier on about the Wonderground. Speaking of close up and such, he's gone now, sadly. Blessings for his memory. Oh, may his memory be a blessing, rather. He was one of those characters. You either liked him or you were kind of lukewarm with him. My son and I just absolutely adored him, and his wife, Jan, you know who I'm going to talk about, and why. And he was just absolutely amazing. My son's 38 now. When he was 21, he invited us to come and open for him at the Orleans before it became the place, like Magic Live, and before Stan Allen went there. And he was doing a close-up room. So we kind of opened for him there, and then got to know him and hung out with him. And I developed, as a result of this, a taste for cranberry martinis, which is who Steve Daiquiri was very famous for. Well, if you had one of his cranberry martinis, then you will know what I'm talking about. Now, you've in fact talked to Jan, his wife, and you're working on a lot of his work. I mean, I have some which is private. I'm never going to post it. I just share it with magicians. But you have some that you're cataloging and doing a lot of Steve's work. Talk to us about Steve a little bit.
Steve Daiquiri. Well, he was on the first Magic when I was a kid. He was on Magic Magazine, this little periodical that came out back in the 70s called Magic Magazine. It was in every grocery store. He was the first guy on the first cover, and he's doing a head twister or chopper or something on the front cover. So I remember him, right, from when I was a kid. Then moving to here 40-something years later, I moved to Las Vegas, and this is a great story too. Jeff McBride, I was actually living in Needles. I was driving up once a week for Gary's Magic meeting on Wednesday. I would at least make the trek 120 miles to go to the Magic meeting. One Wednesday, McBride calls and says, Tim, I want to make a whole day of magic. Let's go to see the Matsuri show at the Imperial Palace, and then we'll go to the Hilton and we'll see another show, and then we'll go to Gary Darwin's. We'll have dinner, and then we'll go to Gary Darwin's show. And so I said, all right. So I packed up my truck and I'm driving in across the desert, and the phone rings, and it's Jeff, and he goes, Tim, he says, do you have your magic with you? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. He says, do you have your suit with you? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And he says, great, because you're opening for Steve Daiquiri at the Hilton. And I went, and so the rest of that drive across the desert, was like opening for Steve. I mean, I haven't even been in Vegas. I don't live there. I mean, it was really kind of an honor, but also a big surprise. And so we did the thing, and then we got to the Hilton, and Steve, there was another performer, a great friend of mine, Scott Hitchcock. Scott, he was the opening performer, and he injured himself, and they needed a replacement. And so I was prepared to do some close-up, and we I did the show I met Jan and Steve, and afterward, Jan came up to me and she says, "Can you come back tomorrow?" And I went, "I'd love to, but what about Scott?" And she says, "Well, he's still injured." And so that night I called Scott and I said, "Listen, pal, I'm not here to take your job. So and he goes, "No, go ahead and do it." It wasn't that it paid a lot, but it was you're working the Hilton, you're opening in the Shimmer showroom. It's for me, it didn't matter if I got paid or not. It was about being able to work Vegas and work the chops out. Just like Paul says, you got a place to work. Yeah. And so I got to know Steve backstage and got to know Jan very well. And then when the show closed, we did one other show together. He did an escape at the pool, and I emceed, and he did a handcuff escape in a pool, finding a playing card underwater. And that was the last shows we did. And then we lost him, sadly. And so it was a memorial service, and Jan was there, of course, and everyone, and it was very nice honoring of him. And about 4 or 5 years later, Jeff gets a call from Jan saying they want to have lunch. And so Jeff called me, and we arranged a lunch, and we all sit together. And Jan took us over and donated the majority of Steve's belongings to the mystery school related to magic. And so the school was able to get this donation. There were some personal things that were given. And then about a month later, Jan calls me and says, "I hear you're archiving, and I know you're archiving everything for Jeff McBride on all his work. Would you be interested in Steve's stuff?" And I went, "Yeah, are you kidding me?" So I went back over, and I'll just show you, mini DVs was the way back in, when they were shooting, and Jan traveled the world with Steve. They traveled the world in lectures. There's performances, there's lectures, there's teaching, and it's all been documented. She painstakingly documented and was behind the camera on all their travels. And she bestowed on me 3 or 4 boxes like this filled with mini DVs. And so it's an honor. I have 3 mini DV cameras. I have 2 laptops connected, and I am digitizing all of this great footage of Steve Dacre, which once it's compiled, and I'm really trying to figure out a way to deliver it, because I could just deliver the raw tapes on abra.tv.
You can't. No. We talked about it, and I think we have a couple of things that we're looking at down the road, possibly even next year, of doing together. And one of them is archiving and maybe getting these out as sort of separate shows and things.
Yeah, people need to see. People need to see it. Well, if anything,
they do.
That's what we're stewards of this. We're just trying to archive and preserve, because once
he was on a TV interview one time with Tony Curtis, the actor. And Tony Curtis referred to him as the fastest hands in magic. And Steve was really brilliant at everything in magic, but his close-up was, I think those of us who knew him, totally phenomenal. Totally phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, he was very well received. I mean, some of the magic, when we look at, it's about him. It's all about the performer. It really is. I mean, Steve did some great. I love his card stab was great. There were so many things that he
did a card stab in the Orleans. I remember that very well. He went up there. He was a good drummer. He actually had a set of drums on stage. He played the drums, and he did a card stab. I'm not kidding. With one of the sticks, the drumsticks. Boom.
Yep.
That was it. The creativity behind that and the thinking is just amazing. Speaking of
funny, Anthony, is that I own that drum kit. I have that.
Okay, there you go. Speaking of that, I want to take you a little bit into Abra TV and the virtual theater. Tell us briefly about that, because I'm also looking at the clock, and what I really
absolutely.
Hold on, Dave. What I want to do with that is have you tell us about Abra TV and the virtual theater, and how folks can actually, with the restrictions on Facebook, etc., how folks can actually use the virtual theater to make some money on their own shows. And I think what we'll do then after that is just open up the chat where people can speak and ask you questions directly about Abra and the virtual theater. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yes. I'll follow your lead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was doing Hollywood Stars of Magic as a live show, Dirk Los Angeles Theater, Las Vegas Magic Theater, right in the Arts District. Wow, you know, doing it once a week. And then I had a small, unfortunate, taking something off the ceiling. I fell about 5 feet off a ladder and broke my heel. So I had to put the show on hold for a couple of weeks. And then our pandemic kind of came into play, right? So the shows were all kind of just questionable. And I said to myself, well, how do I take Hollywood Stars of Magic online? I wanted to do the show as an online show. Why not? It's close-up magic. It still can be appreciated. But I didn't want to give the content away. I charged $25 to $50 a ticket for the show in the theater. So why would I give it for free on Facebook or YouTube? The integrity to me is that, no, the brand has to have a value. No matter what the value is, I need to create a value around the brand. Okay. So I was on this search to find the optimal way to deliver the content and get paid for the ticket. And I found several options to get paid. One was YouTube, but YouTube has to have 1,000 subscribers before they'll even look at you anymore. They have new rules. There was Patreon, which is a great platform to buy and exchange from artist perspective. And it worked. I set it all up. And then I looked at it and went, it's not going to work next month. It doesn't work the same if I wanted to do a recurring show. And so I dumped all that and just started searching. The man I think I mentioned earlier, Street of Cards, for Abbott's in the documentary, I called him because he had been doing this for 10 years, doing the streaming. In fact, McBride TV was the model for McBride's television show on Mondays, was the Street of Cards model in a sense. I mean, it was a chat room and so on. So he had some skills. I called him and I said, I'm looking for a way to ticket my show. A couple of days later, he calls me back and says, here's the software. What do you think? And boy, it's a learning curve on the software, but it does everything I want to do for Hollywood Stars of Magic. So I was very excited. And then I went, wait a minute, this tool that I have, this software tool, is bigger than just my show. I mean, I can use it for my show, but it's bigger than that. And 22 years ago, I bought a domain, abra.tv. 6 letters, abra.tv. And I just sat on it. I've been paying the money every year, wondering what I'm going to do with this. But the initial thought was 22 years ago that I would have my own maybe web network, you know? And so I took the tool and I put it on abra.tv and promoted abra.tv as the place to see Hollywood Stars of Magic. I hope you're following me here. So I created a network for Abra as a network, and the first premiere show on the network was Hollywood Stars of Magic. Well, I'm using the tool. The tool was working. People were buying tickets. You know, and the best thing about the tool is that you can buy the ticket right in the player. You click on the window, buy the ticket, see the show. There's no going anywhere else.
Let me. You've talked to me about this, but I just want to kind of emphasize, so people don't, other than setting up their own cameras and stuff, they don't need to do anything and not have paywalls and all the complications and things that go with it. They can literally come to you through Abra or the virtual theater, which you're going to talk about. Everything is there in place.
What I wanted to do is like, okay, so here I had it working, right? It was working for Hollywood Stars of Magic. I had created abra.tv. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to abra.tv, I want to tell you that it's going through growing. Everything's growing and refinement. We're changing some things. So I'm not making excuses, just we're in development. It's an R&D and it's happening fast. You know, while the COVID was happening, I realized that if I don't build a raft, you know, I had to build a raft. And so I didn't even worry about what was happening. I focused on the software and building Abra and building everything that's come from it by keeping my nose down and going for it. So now I have something here that I can present to other people. It's not really for me specifically because the rewards are later, but the concept in this tool that I have now, I want people to use the tool to see the value in the tool. The tool is like a Swiss Army knife. And it was too complicated. I started Abra.tv and I got Greg Gleason as channel number 1, Dan Sperry's channel number 2, channel number 3 is Doc Eason, channel number 4 is Steve Dackery, channel number 5 is the American Museum of Magic, channel 6 is Hollywood Stars of Magic. So I'm building this aggregate site around Abra so that magicians can have a portal to have their own virtual theater. Now, I'll get to the virtual theater is that this same tool is a little mini theater. It's a portal to the world. And if you have a camera on this side, you can broadcast as we're doing this show, but you can go through your own virtual theater where it appears on your own website or on abra.tv. It can appear everywhere, wherever you want to put it digitally. And this player shows up. So I started abra.tv, gave these players to different performers. Feeling West has got one. Andrew Lee from Malaysia's got his own channel. So I'm building it out. And there is a cost in it because bandwidth is how Facebook and YouTube give you free bandwidth because they can make money. That's how it works. But when you want to make money, it's not as easy. So you got to charge a ticket. And then there's many ways to charge a ticket. I'm not saying that this is for everyone on the virtual theater, but the idea is that we make it simple. If you want to perform, focus on performing, you say, I want to do a 2-hour show on Saturday. We figured out the bandwidth. We figured out how many people can watch. We figured out what the resolution of your camera should be, so that all you have to do is just tell me those things. Then you can go either live or rebroadcast your performance, and it's like a one-stop, you're done. And so that's how I had to set it up. I had to make a product out of the tool so that people understand it. Now I'm using it on abra.tv in a different way. People have channels. So if you have a successful show, for instance, on your own, and you want to put your content on abra.tv, I have no problem with that because we're building a network of magicians. And if you have content that you want to sell, digital content, training, that appears in a playlist under your own channel theater. So if you go to abra.tv, you click channel 1, you can see that there's Greg Gleason's playlist of his Masters of Illusion performances, probably 8 or 10 of them. And then at the top, he's selling his quantum coins new effect with the Matrix thing as one of the videos on top. So he's using it as a sales tool as well as presentational tool. And that's what people can do on their own with the theater. And there are other options, but I'm saying that we've made it, again, trying to refine it to make it simple.
We were talking the other day, and you referred to the raft, as you said, which I think is, amazing. And, my take on it when we were talking was, look, you didn't just look in a crystal ball. You looked in about a half a dozen crystal balls. And this creativity came up in words of very simple syllables. Here I am. I want to put on a show. I got a camera, and I got some lights and a backdrop. And then I come to you, and you basically, for want of a better word, rent me a theater, kind of full walling, if you like, kind of.
Yeah, it is. It's a virtual
and then
full wall.
Yeah. And I don't have to worry about tech stuff like paywall and how am I going to get paid and stuff. People.
Yeah, well, the benefit. Yeah, you're right. Well, no, you're right. I mean, I've solved some things. One of them is that you can charge the ticket right through the player. Mm-hmm. So if you can just try to say, all of a sudden a paywall pops up and it says pay now, and you can PayPal, it'll take American Express, Apple Pay, and it's all right in the player. And then when they pay, they go right through to the show or to the content. Mm-hmm. So that was the benefit for me, and that's really what we're offering. And this is about getting the network built. I really want people to use the theater, get the idea of that they can do their own shows. And they can embed their theater on their own website. They don't have to go through YouTube or Facebook. It's on their website. You use Facebook and YouTube to promote your show on your own.
Right. That's the clever part.
So Facebook is like a medium, yes, and you still want to tell people about it. But if you do it live, you're not getting paid on Facebook. You're not getting paid. So there's some great content on Facebook.
And there's restrictions now, I gather, coming in. I mean,
those restrictions that was floating on the internet, I mean, they've had them in place. They're trying to limit bandwidth usage because it costs money. So when you have to rent your theater, you get an idea, oh, wait a minute, I got to pay for bandwidth? Yes, you do. I mean, either you're going to get it for free on Facebook and they're going to make money, or you can do it on your own and you can make money, but there is a cost. Just like running your own theater, like I did in Vegas.
You and I are both marketing people, and I think the problem with Facebook or any similar thing is that you're competing with so many other things. Whereas if you have a show, let's just say the Joel Zaritsky Magic Show, for want of a title. Joel comes to you, he says, I want to rent this theater virtually, like you would in real life. And you're taking care of the box office, the tickets, collecting the money, doing every single thing.
Except
Now,
for promotion. I mean, you have to
the promotion, obviously, you got to promote yourself. Now, what's the best way, and do it slowly so my editor can put it up on the screen on the edited copy, on the clip, the best email for you so people can come and
Tim@abra.tv. Very simple. TIM@abra.tv. That'll make it easy for everybody.
That'll get to you. And I think you were kind enough when we were speaking as well a few days ago that as a result of everybody watching this through the SAM, because this is an SAM production, they all are, that you were quite happy if they contacted you and used the code SAM Darkstone, that you would offer them some kind of a discount on their first.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and yes, and yes. I really want this tool to be used. We know the value based on just using a calculator and figuring out how much bandwidth and so on. And we have a set price. Well, what I'm going to do is that because I want people to use the theater. If you email me at tim@abra.tv and say, I'm interested in getting a virtual theater for my show or whatever, it's half. Half of whatever level you come in, it'll be half for the SAM members. And I'll even work with you. The idea here is to get you working in this digital virtual world, figuring it out for yourself, not using Facebook and YouTube. Not that they're not, I mean, come on, there's some people making lots of money, but they have lots of followers, and that's the big deal. Until you have followers, you can't really make a ton of money on these platforms, and especially on Facebook and YouTube, both. So here, use Facebook and YouTube as your marketing platform for your show, but drive them to your own website or drive them to your channel on abra.tv, because everybody has their channel on Abra, so you can say, hey, see my show on abra.tv, I'm channel 10.
It's actually like appearing on a TV show that's yours. And, you could say, this is the Joel Zaritsky magic show. You drive the people to do your own promo. Once they get there, that's it. They click, they buy a ticket, you take care of all of that, and the performer then gets a check. That's it. I've
kind of refined it so that you can focus on the show, and you don't have to
focus on the show, and that's it. It's a kind of forewarning. Tim, I'm looking at the clock here, sir, and this has been fascinating. I did warn people that we could sit with you, and I'm trying to grab everything I possibly can. Some of it has just been headlines. Some of it, out of respect to people like Mr. Thompson, we stayed on a little bit longer. What I'd like to do now, if that's okay by you, Tim, is to kind of just do a kind of Vegas meet and greet. And there's a lot of people, I think, open up the chat and microphones. Don't take this the wrong way, but people, would you please not talk over each other? Wait to see. No, I'm just saying the protocol. If you try to talk over each other, it messes up our editor later on and everybody watching. So if you have a question, address it to Tim, either in the chat and I'll read it out, or you can put your mic on, raise your hand, or whatever. There's a feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen that allows you to put your hand up. Joel will show you how that works. I think it's called reactions, or you raise your hand, whatever. And then you just meet and greet with Tim, and there's a ton of stuff I'm sure there's a lot of people want to ask, particularly about running their own shows and making some money. If you make a few $100s or more, which is possible, through Tim's virtual theater, abra.tv, both or one of them, without leaving your home, you know what? You don't have the hassles of airports and airport security and all kinds of other things. You can actually do what you do best. Am I plugging this for Tim? Absolutely, because, and I'll tell you why. I'm just going to ask most illustrious, if we have, and if he can access fairly quickly, we are the SAM, we are the energy. Are we able to access that, most illustrious, reasonably quickly? Yes, he usually has it to hand. There's a reason I'm asking for that. If we can get it, if we can't, it doesn't matter. It's just a visual which was created by Matthew Crabtree, one of our SAM people, which talks about the energy of the SAM. Am I plugging the SAM? Damn right I am. Yeah, and why not? That's the energy. That's the driving. We got two ways to go with this. Choose. Oh man, we got COVID, we got this, we got that. What am I going to do? Or, like Tim said, Go in a forest, get some wood, build a friggin' raft, you know? It may not be the Contiki, you may not sail it across the ocean, but I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying there's stuff there that can be done. That's
Well,
what it's about, that visual. We are the energy, we're the Sam.
the
If you
let me
know,
interject a little bit, Anthony,
go
because
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
we didn't talk anything about me working with David Copperfield.
No, I know we didn't. I'd like to.
But I do want to interject here
Hmm.
about working with David and what I learned. First of all, I was a very fortunate man working with Jeff to be able to go to the museum. And it was at the time when David was getting to the Leslie Cole collection that he purchased 20 plus years prior to that, and basically sat in boxes in his warehouse waiting to be unboxed. And so I was part of the crew that was involved in that, and I have to say it was the most amazing experience of my life. I love history and I love documentation, and I love that. And I had to, with a couple other folks, Will Bradshaw, Jordan Rooks, eventually, a couple other guys, you know, as many hours as we wanted to work unboxing for the first time in 20 years, who knows what. And I'm telling you that you know, the euphoria of Christmas comes to mind. Every day I went to work. It was like opening up a box and going, what's in here?
Or getting USAM certificate through the post.
Yes. Well, the same way I felt, though. We're talking about how do you feel, you know, as far as experience is concerned. So getting to this COVID idea and me being proactive with Aber.tv, I mean, it all came pretty organically, but it also, I knew that I had to do something, right? I mean, and you know, I think out of all the people in this pandemic, I think magicians are probably the most versatile at figuring something out, because we're problem solvers. If you're really a performer and you're doing stuff and you're working things out, you can figure this out. I just figured it out for myself with Hollywood Stars of Magic. I produced 6 episodes with Kyle and Misty and J. Scott Barry. I mean, I had some nice guests on the show, but then I was the focus had to stop that show for a bit to get this network rolling, it's bigger than Hollywood Stars of Magic. So I had to put Hollywood. It's not like it's gone away. It's just, you know, there's something bigger. And since then, you know, getting to David, one day I was standing, talking to him, and he has the best word that any businessman could have, and the word is next. Because if you get bogged down, you're basically lethargic. I mean, there's nothing there. So you got to go next. Yeah. And that's working with him. If I got, you know, one word that ever I gleaned from working with David is the word next, because that's why he has and does what he does. I mean, he's a master. All honor and hats off to him that he trusted me to be with one of his most prized possessions, his all of these amazing artifacts, and I was able to touch and put things in the museum. And you know, I remember the first time I was working with him, I was dusting off some Aikido props, and it's just him and I in the museum, you know, and I'm going, what an honor to be here with you, you know. And he basically reflected back, it's an honor to have you here, because I think that if anything, if we have a deep appreciation for it, like with the daiquiri tapes that I'm trying to archive and the McBride stuff. So in this Aber.tv effort, it's next. What are we doing next? You know, yeah, we got something to be, well, what's next? And so here's an opportunity.
That's a good word for all of us who in show business. Yes, it's made up of 2 words, show and business.
Right.
So really, at the end of the day, if you got to have a good word, it's next. You know, it's that simple. So how about if we open up the chat and let people talk to you, because I'm sure people have very specific things they want to ask you.
I'd love to answer any questions I can. Fire away.
Yeah, okay, or just chat. I mean, you know.
Yes.
So I think really let's do that to anybody and everybody. Can we just really read from the president-elect, Mr. Tom Gentile, who is the successor to Joel next year. I want to express a huge thank you for sharing the life and time of magic and yours. Very informative, truthful images of being there. Your excitement of involvement in the moment rings through. Being involved takes you to the next chapter. The Brotherhood of Compeers continues to support each other for the common goal of sharing magic. Yeah, that's
Oh,
the
well,
magic.
those
Thank
are
you.
some beautiful words. Thank you so
Are they
much.
just beautiful words? Thank you. Make a note of them, Tom.
Humbled.
I want to put that. I want to put that in an article about this show. We don't always do articles about these shows, but I want to put that in an article and get it to MUM because I think everybody needs to read it. They need to see the officers of the SAM filtering that energy down, that passion, that drive. Because if you're not doing that, you're not a magician.
Yeah, well,
You have to
vibrancy
create
is,
magic.
if
You have to create
bubbles in the
magic.
champagne. Like I used to tell Jeff, champagne goes flat if you leave it on the table. Cokes go flat. So I like to use the word effervescence.
Yes, good word.
Effervescence is a great word, and it illustrates bubbles in the champagne. And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
so that's what I mean, in everything that in my effort in the public and even in private, I mean, I'm really trying to keep the bubbles going.
No, I know. I've spent time with you. Yeah, you're a very energetic guy. And when I talked to you about joining the SAM and the SAM International Assembly, which I'm honored to
And my
represent.
tail's wagging to be here, really. I mean, so
And so it should. You're a good dog. What can I say? You're one of the good guys, man. Okay, let's open it up and everybody chat.
Give me 1 second. Let me open up for everybody. Give me 1 second, and you should. Hey, by the way, shout out to Dylan Murray in Ireland.
Hey, Dylan.
Oh yeah, Dylan.
All the way from Ireland.
Where are you? Highlight him for a second, can we? I don't know who's here. I'm so busy listening to Tim and doing my job as a director and the host. Oh, there he is.
Dylan, how are you, pal?
Yeah. Dylan is our latest member. Our latest member of the SAM and obviously the International Assembly because he's based in Ireland. He's a very bright young man, won a lot of awards. He's getting some great press in Ireland because he joined the SAM. I had one of the reporters contact me. So he hasn't got his certificate yet, but I had a copy of it sent from Mano, great lady, always helpful. This is what we're at in the SAM. Everybody works together. It's cohesive. We just get things done. I spoke to the reporter and put that up. So that's going to feature in the article in the newspaper. Dylan is our representative of the SAM International Assembly in Ireland. We have an amazing young man in Finland who is also our representative for Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and elsewhere. And we have Gunnar up in Iceland. Great people. I mean, we have people from all over the world who are joining us, Singapore, Malaysia, all over the place. Anyway, glad you were here. I'm glad that Most Illustrious noted that you were here. Dan Sclair. We will ask Tim to talk more about Jeannie and your gem giveaway. That's from Dan Sclair to me privately. I will. Tony Jr. says Aber TV is awesome. Great night, Anthony. Well, you're very welcome. PJ, from Malta, we have another International Assembly member, Brian Rolle. Really enjoying the session. Thank you for sharing all these fantastic experiences. Absolutely wonderful. Do I get you the best guests or what? Hey, you know what? I'm going to give a little plug for next Saturday's show. Normally we take every 2 weeks, a fortnight. But for all kinds of logistics with the guest, next Saturday, the Darkstone Dossiers are going to feature the Berglass family. Even Mr. David Berglass. Have you got a treat coming?
Wow, that'll be great.
Yeah, exactly. I know you're going to be watching. Yeah, PJ says, great session. Tim, Gary D had a way of bringing people together. Ron Jones chauffeured me there. Gary remembered me and my parents fondly for many years, and I met you there. So, hey, you know what, guys? Let's just open up the mics and, go to Tim. Talk to him about a virtual.
Yeah, let's talk. PJ was great. I remember our time together and at Gary Darwin's. And, here's the thing about the community of magic, in my opinion, is that there are people that bring us together. And Gary Darwin is one. Jeff McBride is another. I met Gary Darwin and spent more, initially at the Magic Club. But and what was great about Darwin is that it was rain or shine every Wednesday night. Didn't matter if it was a holiday, didn't matter, whatever. It always happened at some point. So you always had some consistency. So I met many people. Paul V. Hills, where I met Paul initially. Everybody used to go through there and filter through there. So that's where I met PJ. She was traveling through. Ron Flame was a performer, a very dynamic performer. And that's how we met. And that's how it works, right? When we bring people together. Jeff McBride brought Wonderground.
That's what we're doing here, Tim. You know,
That's
we're
right.
trying to do that. Let's see if we can spotlight him.
Where's PJ?
That's Helmo Huvila from Finland. Where are you? Are you here?
Oh,
He's just put up something. Let's see if we can bring him up. I mentioned him earlier on. I don't know where he is. He says, always so wonderful to hear stories from the greats. Are you there, Elmo? Where are you? We're trying to highlight you. But anyway, he's our representative for the Nordic countries, as I mentioned earlier on. Dylan says, thank you for a wonderful evening to our president, to me, to Tim Weiss, to a wonderful evening. Tonight has been my first evening, and I look forward to being a part of many more. Absolutely. Yeah, we love you. Love you to join us. It's so late here already. Yeah, well, it's way past because it's already probably coming on.
Yeah, we're almost 2 hours in.
Yeah. No, well, I'm talking about some of the European countries. They're like,
Yeah,
well after midnight. They're still sticking with us.
Well, if you stuck
Plus,
around,
but they're magicians, and when you're a magician, if you can't stay up until dawn, you're just slacking off.
there's PJ. How are you, darling? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. What a wonderful session. I've enjoyed every minute. You've reminded me of lots of stories. Just by hearing yours.
Thank you. Yeah, triggers. There are little triggers, and if we stay engaged, we'll have many more to share. This has been really great today. Really.
Yeah,
That's
David,
the best part about staying together in this horrible situation that we're going through, where we can't be together in person. This has really made me feel better every day.
well,
therapy.
Yep. David First says, "Hi, Aunt PJ." So obviously, yeah, I know
Hi,
this.
David.
You're everybody's aunt. Yeah. Mr. Hurst asked to join the Anthony Darkstone Magic Chronicles. I don't know what Facebook keeps doing, but get in touch with me. I would definitely want to talk to you. And he says, love the stories and togetherness. Okay.
Jim,
Yes, go ahead.
can you
Yes,
talk more
Dan.
about your genie character and your gem giveaway?
Yeah, Dan. Nice to see you, pal. Where are you at? Where do you live?
Ellington, Connecticut.
In Connecticut. Well, Joel's going to show the book. Go ahead, Joel. This is Dr. Larry Haas at Magic and Mystery School with George Parker put this book together with many contributions about the idea of gifting in general in your magic. Because if you can create an impression with as a performer and you give them something significant, more than likely they'll hold it, remember it, and it goes in that scrapbook drawer of whatever. So when I was doing the genie, the gift magic thing evolved. In fact, George Parker's version of that in the book uses a common thumb apparatus that I don't know if we have the public here, but it uses a yes. And so so that you can show your hands empty. And so there's a couple methods of doing this. And when I was doing the genie, I used a couple of methods because it was when I first went out, I think I said, McBride said, take this thing out on the street the next day. So I took it out on the street. And what did I have? A pocket full of gems and a thummy majiggy, And so that was all I had. There was no other magic on my person. And so I tried different methods of gifting this gemstone. And I had it evolved into what they were looking to me as the genie. Like, do you have a wish? I would say, and of course they do. I want you to focus on one wish. And I would get very, as I do in my show at the Magic Castle, I actually have integrated the gemstone gifting thing, not only for one child whose birthday or is celebrating in my audience as the genie, but also I gift everybody comes into the Magic Castle shows, writes a wish down on a piece of paper, puts it in a bowl. That bowl has a silk that's holding all the wishes, goes into a crystal silk cylinder, and I change everything into gems for the entire room at the end of my performance, and they all get one as they leave. But the gem with the single person, I ask them to think of one wish or one dream and close their eyes, and I say, just as you cannot ride more than one bicycle at a time, nor can you achieve more than one wish or dream at a time. And so I get them into a space of thinking about their wish. And then I say, now open your eyes. Now show me your hands empty. Let's reach into the air and manifest something. Is there anything there? And they go, no, there's nothing there. That's right, because the wish is here and not in their hand. But in a moment, I'm going to manifest this wish into something tangible, and it will remind you of this wish for the rest of your life. Are you ready? And they, yeah, we're ready, I guess, so we do it again. I say, show me your hands empty. They do. We reach up into the air. We grab the gem. They open their hands. There's nothing there. And then out of my hands, I manifest a crystal. Now, it drops into their hands, and there's a moment, well, there's astonishment, but it's more focused astonishment, because when the gem appears, they're already thinking about their wish. So there's this connection of the gem coming from nowhere, the intention, so on and so forth. So when they get the gem, then I go, this represents your wish. And I take it out of their hands. Now, if your wish is not clear and I do a French drop, it absolutely will disappear. But if your wish is clear and in focus, it will absolutely come true. And I reproduce the gem. And this is my dream gem from me to you, so that you can hold on to your wish. And then I close their hand over their gem. Now, it's a nice little tight thing that you can do over the counter. You don't have to be a genie to do it, because people will still be engaged. Now, George Parker, who wrote about it in the book, and I never had met at that point. I was doing his stuff as a genie, but I had never met George. I had a very strong, this is where the magic and medicine comes in with Joel. We were talking about that earlier, and the effect that we have as an archetype. So here I'm as a genie, I'm out on Fremont Street, I was busy, and these two women come up and they say, hey, can we have your picture, Mr. Genie? And I said, of course, we take a couple pictures. And then I asked one of the ladies, do you have any wishes or dreams? And this woman nods her head. And I said, okay, now focus on this one wish. And I go through the little ritual, and I drop the gem into her hand, and the gem falls into her hand. Now, mind you, I don't know what the wish is. I actually don't want to know what the wish is. I just want them to have the intention. So the drops the gem in her hand, and she goes from receiving it to a very sullen, like downtrodden look. And as the genie, with all the lights and Fremont Street and the noise and everything else, I kind of just crossed my arms and I looked at her and go, is there something wrong with your gem? And her friend looks at me and she says, oh my goodness, you don't understand. And this poor woman looks up to me with tears in her eyes saying, this gem represents my daughter who was murdered 2 days ago. And I cried with her, lights, sound, everything around me. But I realized when we got into magic and medicine and I finally met George Parker, that the power of that significant, I had no idea, but that's how much I had control of that I didn't know I had control of. I put your intention here, put it there. And so when I shared that story, he said, I've had a lot of experiences. I never had one like that, but that's how significant gifting can be. I've had people come up to me as the genie a year or two later saying, I still have my gem. I still have my gem. So you don't know what it means to anyone. But if you gift and you're significant in the gifting, it will be impactful. So when the genie and the gem and how that works, I mean, I can talk about methods. It's in the book, and I don't even know if you can get copies of it anymore. But maybe we can break out and do a session sometime, and I can teach the gem, and maybe Anthony can orchestrate that or whatever. But
we'll get that done, because we have a couple of things planned in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So thanks for I hope that answers the question or gets you closer to what you're.
I don't know if you want to give it away, but is the gem like something you would get from like a Michael's craft shop?
Okay.
I do a bubble thing where I produce blow a bubble, produce a small marble.
Yep.
I do a thing where, I guess it was Vito Lupo, because you can also buy a round glass like disc, and they'll say it's just a marble, and I show that I can flatten it and then blow it back up. And depending on how old the kid is, I'll ask the parent, can I give this to your child? If you take this home and put it under your pillow tonight, when you wake up, there'll be $1, and I'm winking at the parent and stuff. So
sure. All right. Very, very good point, because I went through many different things trying to figure out what to give away. What do I give away? And I realized that things that are common, then people kind of get this trivial, oh, that's just a marble, or because I used to do the crystal marbles, with the bubble, and it's great. Actually, that effect is great, but to give a marble through the effect that I was doing didn't work. And so I went to a gem store and got real crystals. And there's a gem store on Sahara that sells it by the bin. I just buy a bag of them, and I just pull out a crystal every time I do a show for the individual. For the bigger picture, when I do the entire audience, I have some lesser expensive gems to give away. But the child or the person I'm performing for gets something that's this is important, unrecognizable. When it first falls in their hand, they got to look, what is that? It's not something I'm familiar with, because it's a different shape. It's not a pond stone. It's not a common little trinket that you might see. It's something different. And so that's kind of a psychological thing that I think is important, is that you're not just giving them something that they could find simply, but it has more significance when it's
a tangible keepsake. That connects with the moment of what you're doing. Rod Chow, who is our first VP, has written something. You know what? I'm not going to read it out. I'm going to ask Rod to actually say it.
Hi, Tim.
Hey, how are you, pal? Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for sharing everything with us here today. It was so interesting. I really loved it. And you just so many different experiences that you've done over the years that, and have you share that with us. It's really wonderful. And your idea for the ARPA TV, I think is really timely. And something that magicians, like you say, how can you capitalize on, this internet thing? And you've actually formalized it to something that is like in the box. So you just take it out of the box and use it, right? Basically, right? So right out of the box. So which, you've done the research, and I think it's a really great idea. And right now is the time.
Thank you.
It's perfect timing. So
thank you.
Here, Opera TV, all excellent. Thank you for offering the discount to Darkstone viewers right now.
Sure.
So generously.
Well, I'll elaborate a little bit more. Is that you're welcome, first of all, and thank you for the kind words, because there is no aggregate site for magic for the. Like, I'm not going to say, because all our memberships we're an aggregate site, right? We go and we find other magicians, but where does the public go, or where can the public go? And then now that everybody's trying it now, and I don't expect everybody to use, there's ways to use Abra. There's ways to use the virtual theater. You can use Abra as like, if I'd love to have members who have shows or content to put their product on Abra, because it'll be seen. So people that go to see Rod Chow will discover Steve Daiquiri, or people that go to see Jeff McBride will discover Rod Chow. So there's this, it's like an aggregate site. You discover more when you go to one place. So thank you for your kind words about building it. It came honestly just organically and very quickly. And so that makes it even feel better. It's not like I was even really by design, I'm going to do this. It's all coming together. And I will just jump in that I have now, with my partner, got outside of magic, and we have streaming platforms using the tool in real estate, music, comedy. It's great. So I'm using the tool to build the concept of people can have their own. They don't have to rely on the outside. They can do it themselves. So anybody that's interested today, I want to get them into it.
I think
Rod
wanted to add that he said, glad to have you as a new member, SAM, and to see you so proudly show us your SAM membership certificate, plus wearing your SAM pin.
I noticed that you're wearing your pin all this time too.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I got it in the mail, and I said, you know what, more apropos time than right now. And also, thank you so much, Joel, for bringing Eugene into the membership card, because I want to share this with you. Honestly, this is the Eugenie Award that I got last year at the Magic and Meeting Conference. And this is filled with good wishes from everybody at the conference. But the idea of you honoring Eugene, because I do several pieces of his. He was a master of scripting and theatrical performance. And I would be remiss to not mention Eugene again, just in the fact that he's on the card, on the membership card. I think that's kind of significant. So
all of you are such a huge part of me growing as a magician and my, me becoming who I am. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, you see how, okay, so when we think about all of this, you know, it's around a brotherhood. It's about reciprocity, but not with demand. There's no demand in the reciprocity. The reciprocity comes through the sharing, and you get what you don't expect. And that's what actually the vibrancy, where my vibrancy comes from, because I know in all my experience, my mother let me quit high school at 16 and join a magic show. So then when I came off that magic show a year later, man, I was like, well, what's next? I mean, I had already traveled to Alaska and did shows every day. So I felt like there was what's more. So everything I've attempted in my life now, I don't have the fear like I would have if I never had that experience. Magic has been fundamental in all my restaurant tour, my advertising agencies, the companies I've worked for, you know, working with David Copperfield. I mean, I'm bringing, like, you don't design your life, but your life unfolds when you say yes. If you say no, you know the answer. This is one of the things in my show. I go, there's 4 things in life. You know, love yourself first. Don't be attached to the outcome. There is no emergency. And the last thing I say is to say yes as much as possible, except to your detriment. And so Johnny Thompson said yes to me with Hollywood Stars of Magic, and it happened. So Monty Hall from the Let's Make a Deal show, which we never even talked about, never even got into this. I produced and hosted the Let's Make a Deal show in America here, a live version of it for almost 20 years. It's because Monty Hall said yes to me. And so yes is a great word. We love it when we hear it, and it really feels good when we say it. So if we can say yes to someone, it feels good. And when someone says yes to us, it feels good. So that's, you know, if there's any takeaways here, is that there's nothing that's impossible. Say yes as much as possible. You're in the industry of impossibility. So, you know, it's really great that we have this group we can share, and I'll just go on and on, but that's, you know.
Well, what we're going to have to do, Tim, is, like I said, I just kind of did headlines without the full article. And I know you pretty good, and I know there's a lot of stuff that I would have liked to have put in, but time constraints and everything else.
Yeah, we're 2 hours now. I apologize for that.
Well, that's all right. Well, hey, you know, it's the passion, it's the energy. That's what it's about. I make no apologies for it. I always say yes to it when it drives me. So if we've learned anything from this, it's saying yes. It's understanding Mr. Copperfield's concept of next. Why not combine the two and go, yes, next, yes, next. And, you know, if you say that frequently enough to yourself, things can get done. And speaking of yes, I've been a member of the SAM and an international deputy for 20 years plus or whatever. And when I first met and started talking with Joel, he said to me, yes, I love it. And I said something else to him. He went, yes, I love it. Yes, I love it. And this is where we brought it to today. The most left field of things, the most left, some of you know, I've done talk shows at conventions and on TV and all that kind of stuff with magicians, but this is a whole new creature, this whole new Zoom thing. The first Zoom show I ever did was a pilot for Arian Black's Magic Kitchen, and it was a friggin' disaster. I mean, it was okay, but, you know, we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. And if there's one thing, the non-tech guy telling you stuff, but hey, you know, I know about directing. So I've been in this business. I'm 73. I've been in this business for a long time, since I was 6 years old. There's a fourth wall on Zoom. My entire purpose is, we can bring it down. You can. In the live theater, you can, depends on your character. Tim and I were talking about this, and we will, in the fullness of time next year, plan to talk a little bit more. But so the best thing to do is to create gaps in it, gaps in the fourth wall, because it's a whole different kind of experience that people are feeling. Tim understands this. We've talked about it. I've talked with Joel about it. And one of the things we've got coming up with Tim on one of the virtual theaters, or Aber, with Joel and other people, is actually sitting down and saying, hey, you know, we're all hanging out in a bar and we're exchanging ideas. We may not even be talking about effects, yes? We're just talking about different things that people don't generally.
Well, we can bring our experiences together, Anthony. I mean, that's
exactly what it is. Yeah.
And so, you know, we may not even, in our future conversations, I look forward to that we will be just jamming about everything that and it's going to be allied. Anything that we probably will talk about will be allied to magic in some way. I also want to just jump in and just say, any way that we can work together in any way to put the message out, Joel. I mean, I'm here. I could be a spokesperson. I just want you to know that if there's anything anything I can do to.
Oh, we have plans for you, Tim.
Oh my!
Oh, we have. We
Tim,
have. Yeah.
Tim, the answer is yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Next.
We have plans for you. I didn't tell you about this.
Yeah.
I was waiting. Yeah, if you did a good job on the show, I thought, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we'll go ahead. No, Joel and I,
You
we have
just made
plans.
me sweat, Joel. I all of a sudden I feel like
we-
I'm working here.
Yeah, we have plans for you, sir. Okay, I think we literally have probably one of the longest Darkstone dossiers. Not that it wasn't interesting. I'm happy to sit here for another 3 hours. I love this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
well, anybody who's stuck with us this long, you have the patience of a saint, and thank you for joining us. I mean, there's so much I wanted to talk about. I gave Anthony, I said, let's just start here and ask me questions because there's so my life. I mean, come on, it's just anyway. I've been a long time. So then, by being around and integrated, it's fun to be involved, and then I get to share stories about every person that I've been interacted with. I have some great experience to share. And so if we ever meet in person, please don't feel shy about coming up and saying hello. I'm very easy to talk to and would love to meet all of you in person. But today, thank you for joining me tonight and with Anthony.
It's even easier to talk to if you bomb a drink.
Yeah, but I don't drink alcohol, so
I know you don't. That's why I said it. Yeah.
That's why I can go yes next.
That's the first thing I think you or somebody thrust into my hand at the Wonderground. I went, what's that? I opened it up and they were like vouchers for the bar. And I thought, I like this place.
Yes.
Yeah, I like this place.
That's one of the perks of working the Wonderground.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I like this place. Anyway, I think, ladies and gentlemen, unless there's someone who has something absolutely vital you need to ask Tim, we've come to the stage where we have to wrap because I'm going to drive our editor absolutely crazy. He's got to sit through all of this.
2 hours now.
Yeah. So unless you have something absolutely vital, then, thank you to SAM officers, Roy Chow.
Anthony, can I say one thing?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
I just want to say, thank you again, as always, to you and Tim and everyone else. And Tim, you are absolutely right, because I do a lot of stuff for gifting and memories, and it is the emotion, and it is important, and you can't underestimate that, because there were people that I have performed for that still hold on to their keepsakes. And as I always say, when you perform, you never know who you're going to meet or where it'll lead to. But I'm happy to hear you and other people do the gifting, because that truly is magic, and it's very special. So thanks for all you do, Tim.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy. And thank you. Carry some gems in your pocket, learn the gem trick, do it for someone at the grocery store who's having a hard day behind the counter. It really will shift a consciousness if you snap people. It's NLP. It's so you're right. And I'm grateful that you're out there doing the work too, because we are stewards here. All right. And if we help people believe in magic, it will bridge any, honestly, it's magic has taken me everywhere, even outside of magic.
Tim used
it's universal.
Yeah,
Yep.
Tim, it certainly is. Tim used the abbreviation, for those of you who don't know what it is, NLP, it's Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I urge you to study a little bit about it, or at least understand what it means, because it really will help you in your magic. Whatever you do, be it children's, restaurant, stage, TV, understand some of the concept. May his memory be a blessing, dear Eugene and I have spoken about it for forever every time we met. Yep. These are concepts that you need to look outside of, well, what's the method? Is it a double turnover and an undercut? Yeah, we got all that.
As you refine your magic, Anthony, you get to the understanding that everything you say and do can and will drive the emotion behind it. So I don't know, David, what you're doing, but if you imbue any type of emotion from your audience, and it could be one-on-one or whatever, you have connected. You've broken that fourth wall. You've made an emotional bond. And then if there's any kind of physical trinket exchanged, a business card can be the trinket if something's written on it or whatever is significant. So yes, I mean, good work. Thanks for the good.
Not that it matches much anymore, but for those of us who kind of jump on and off planes and in the recent past of several years have to go through airport security, I have a ton of stories. I'm not going to tell you not even half of them, not even one. airport security is great if you have some stuff. And if you're kind to these guys and gals and you smile and you do the simplest of things, they go, oh, yeah, that's okay. It's no more, what is this in your carry-on? Why have you got 17 decks of cards? It's none of that. So it can help you in different situations, and I'm sure as many of us have experienced. Well, I think really, most illustrious, what do you think? I think we've come to the time we could just thank everybody. And I just say, for the last few minutes, if someone has something absolutely vital you want to ask Tim, ask it now. If not, please email him. He's given you his email, and talk to him about whatever you wish. And he's kindly opened up to every SAM member. If you just say SAM Darkstone, he's going to give you a discount.
Yeah, just put that in an email to Tim at abra.tv. And I want to work with you. So when I say 50%, let's make the show work. Let's make the theater work. Let's make it, because if you're successful, then I can leverage that in a sense for you and for your show to put that on abra.tv. So you produce your own little thing. It might work. Let's put you on abra.tv. You create some episodes of your performances. They're past episodes that people could watch or pay-per-view, because that's really the objective here, is no more free. Create value in your content, then people will want to participate. For instance, like if we did this show and it was a ante up $5 to be a part of this conversation, that's value. So when we do that, that's what we're trying to create, is value in our own performances and in every content that we put out there, so that if you set the bar low, then that's what people expect. If you set the bar high, then if you go lower, it's okay, but you still set the bar, so we got to set the bar.
Absolutely. I know on one of the things that, Tim is offering, it's $99. Here's my take on it. If I was your Tobias Beckwith or your manager or producer, I would just gather 3 people. It's $30 each, dollars, which, if you translate into euros or pound sterling or whatever currency, is really nothing.
Right.
3 of you could actually go there, do your paywall. Oh, and you get a 50% discount from Tim. So we're really talking like what, $45 something, yeah, which is really nothing.
Yeah.
Go in there, try your show out, get your tickets. You not only covered yourself for paying the $45, you're just giving you a discount, right?
Right.
You not only covered yourself, 3 of you. What's that? $15 each? Oh, come on. If people ain't going to buy, and you got to promote it.
Well, let me just interject about renting a real theater. I mean, when I produced Hollywood Stars of Magic, I wanted to produce it in Vegas, and I had to find a theater. And Dixie Dooley had a nice little theater in the Royal Resort, and it was the best option, but I had to rent it. And I looked at other rooms, and it was expensive. I mean, it wasn't cheap to produce this, just to rent the room. So what here it is now you don't have any of that. Really, you don't. I don't have any of the theater management, getting in and out. I got to set up, if I'm doing a show here, you set it up once and nobody disturbs it. It's there. So, but there is hard cost in renting a real theater, and there's a hard cost in renting a virtual theater, but it's minimal considering your audience is unlimited. If you do a good enough job with your Facebook promotions, and I mean, there's a lot that has to go into it. You got to advertise on Facebook to drive people to your show. And so how do you get people to your show? Well, advertise. That's the only way you get business. So you have to advertise. But if you get your audience, then you're going to create value in your show, and then you're going to make some financial reward.
Say three people get together. As the crow flies, it's about $15, $16 a piece. You get your show together, and quite frankly, if you're not making your $45 back, I don't mean this to be offensive.
You don't get hurt.
You're not getting hurt, but I don't mean to be offensive. If you don't get your $45 back and then some, you may want to look at what it is you're performing. Okay.
Sure. But I mean, the idea here is to not get hurt. I mean, when I produced Hollywood Stars of Magic, I didn't want to go deep into my pocket. Deep. I went in because I wanted to do it. So I had to create the brand and build the brand, the idea. I promoted it well before the show even did its first show. I was trying to really be proactive in branding, but there's still a cost. There's a cost to doing it. So if you kind of just come down here to doing a virtual show, you have to still sell the ticket. right? And that's kind of where the promotion and advertising comes in. But you can't, I didn't want to get hurt in my first show. I didn't want to, like, if I lost $100, that's okay. Cause you know, you could lose 100, but if you lose, like some of these shows that open in Vegas were millions of dollars, honestly, over time, and only did one performance because some other factor came in. So here's a way for you to do your show online for very reasonable cost and get it done, and then try it and experiment. And I'm willing to work with anybody who's has the same vision as I do about it.
Okay, well, I think we come to the point where really I have to say thank you to Brett Soul, as a man you don't see.
Brett, thank you very much. Yep.
We have a little joke that he rides shotgun with a 30-30. But you know, really, he looks after things, lets people in, and he makes sure we don't get hacked and all those kind of wonderful things. So really, you know, I want to acknowledge him. And obviously, the other joke is the Darkstone's got the best tech guy in the business. Who else? Yeah, the SAM president is my tech guy. Yeah. Yeah. So really, no, thank you. On a serious note, Joel does, you know, I direct and produce and host Staring Black's Magic Kitchen, one or two other things, and the Darkstones, he's there. Always helpful. And there's a lot of work that happens, you know, to make sure the clips are there, the stills, all of that gets done, and we collate it all. You know, same like putting on a live show. You know, we have to go through weeks of work. I'm chatting with Tim, you know, finding out what he wants to say and things like that. So thank you to everyone who attended, also to all those people who had to leave. Thank you very much. I fully appreciate in your time zone, it's probably quite late. So thank you very, very much for everything. Elmo from Finland, of which time it is in Finland, it's about 1 a.m., says, this was totally worth being awake at 1 a.m. Yeah, just amazing.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks for that, everybody.
So I want to thank SAM officials for being here. The only names I can think off the top of my head are Art Chow and Mr. Gentile. And I believe we had some past presidents, etc. So thank you so much. Thank you to all international SAM International Assembly members for coming out and playing. It's been great. Thank you for some of the regular people like David First, etc. To Tony Jr., who's just joined us as an SAM person in the International Assembly, for spreading the word. And PJ says, great job all. Thank you, PJ. And I just want to end with something that Mr. Tom Gentile, President-elect, has written in the chat. And this is something I've heard from greats like my friend and mentor, Pat Page, dear Ali Bongo, and of course, the legendary Eugene Berger. They always remember how you made them feel. That's the magic. And that, as Tim says, is the sharing of the truth. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your presence. I wish you a pleasant Saturday and Sunday. Have a good week and stay happy.